Dr. Scotty, as you like to be known. I'm so excited to have you here with me for this episode. How are you?
Absolutely great and absolutely delightful to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Can't wait for our conversation.
I want to start in a place that both brings us a bit of joy, which is International Day of People with Disability. I know you were an ambassador last year, and I would just love to know, what does that day mean to you?
I think it's one thing that really lifts the profile of people with disability. I'm really harkering for this idea around disability excellence, and we never think about disability in that way, just how excellent our lives are and just how, and it's not in this kind of tacky, inspirational way. The people in my community are just doing really wonderful things, such a wonderful community. And it's one day, but one day where we can kind of lift and elevate the wonderful stories of the disability community. Just a really joyous way to kind of go, yeah, we're pretty cool. We're in a pretty cool community.
We are. And in a conversation we've had, you mentioned the idea of incorporating the word sparkle into the conversation. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I've been toying with this idea of, we have a right to sparkle. And, a lot of people who work in the disability kind of have to fight just to be in the room. So there's a struggle just to have inclusive education, just to be in the classroom. There's a battle to get a job. And I said, we spend so much energy just our right to access. We actually want a right to sparkle. Like, actually, let's set off party streamers once we're in the room as well. And it's about that. He said, actually, we actually have a right to be celebrated and sparkling, not just to going, oh, isn't that great? You made it here. And I think that's the next frontier of what I think, our right just to sparkle and shine.
And how do you think that the current format and execution of International Day of People with Disability has gone about really consciously incorporating the perspectives of people who are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples into the narrative and to the celebration?
I think there's two stories to that. Being a First Nations person myself, I'm from the Worimi people, I'm deaf, so kind of like two sides. And it's really fascinating having the First Nations and the disability experience. And there's a lot of attention given to Indigenous issues in Australia. It's still a contest, but people are talking about it, where I don't think we've had the discussion around disability. And I said, I'm in both kind of worlds, and I feel like, one side burns your hot, which is the First Nations, Indigenous experience, but disability kind of freezes you out a bit, and there's still people feeling really awkward about having a discussion. And I know when I was coming through the education system, I felt like I was supported as an Aboriginal student coming through, my various degrees and end up getting a PhD. And I kind of, where are all the deaf people in it? And so I actually make a conscious effort to talk about, look, I'm deaf, I'm Aboriginal, I'm proud times two. And, deaf is actually part of me in my existence as well. It's part of who I am as much as I talk about being an Aboriginal person. And I thought they're the conversations. I thought I hadn't heard that when I was coming through. So I'm hoping people hear that now and go, just go for it,
I would love to see if you're comfortable to expand on this concept you mentioned, which is that there's a certain nuance of how people sort of interact and approach you from the First Nations perspective versus the disability perspective.
People are just starting to make their way in the room now. And these are the people who are going, actually, we have a place in this room and we have a distinct contribution. And what we've lived through and our experiences is a different experience to being an Aboriginal person. And I said people who are wanting to work in our space, in that particularly if it's Indigenous and disability space, you need to understand the disability story around the struggles that they've had. It looks differently to the history and experiences of Aboriginal people in this country.
I'm really committed and want to be very transparent that I'm just at the beginning of a learning, and I'll be on this learning for a long time. But I would love to know, what do you think the role of tech innovators and people creating the future of assistive technology have in helping solve some of the barriers faced by people in these remote communities? If there is a role, or maybe if there isn't.
There is, and I think really needs to think about the personal relationship with technology and the person. And again, I keep coming back to my experience. I said my relationship with technology is like we're like an odd, incompatible housemates that are forced to live together out of necessity. So I'm this kind of slothful, slow, leave things round, and I've got this needy flatmate technology who, hang on, you haven't plugged it in properly. I'm not working. But we find a way to live together. And I said, but I've been through this where it's kind of like I avoided getting a cochlear implant. I had one because I had no choice. But the second one I held off for so long, thought I just didn't want to go there. And when I did, I thought I got to own it. So I went from being like, I've got the hearing thing because I'm deaf to the kids across the road goes, you're a cyborg. And I went, okay, that's the persona now. I'm a cyborg, and you might find me in your PlayStation game, but you got to get further down the track before you run the cyborg. So I'm the only cyborg in the street, and it kind of like how the younger people didn't see it as like, you poor thing, you're getting a cochlea. That's how the faces, the sad eyes, and that are going. Yeah. But I said the young kids were going, how cool. You've got some technology. Can I have one? I said, no, sorry. And I always give an example about pilots and planes, like pilots to be productive in society get a plane. Without a plane, they're pretty useless. I said, but they're not seen as disabled. And they're going, for some reason, I get cochleas. It's like, hang on. I can't do things. There's this invisible wall put around me about what I can and can't do. I ignore the wall, but it's still there, And I know many younger people, see that, and I just feel like going, stick with it. You're going to be okay.
And what advice would you give to people in the disability tech space who have an idea or a solution and they're really passionate about making it to fix this issue of the cultural divide and to incorporate more of the perspective of the First Nations people in Australia into their solutions so that it really can remove barriers?
The designers and that who aren't the people with disability, they may be guessing, we have the real deal, we have the experiential knowledge, our community. So I would like to imagine that in the digital and technology world, people going, it's more than just having the greatest technical solution. People got to use it. It's got to be real. And people with a disability, they're the ones that are going to keep it real.
And have you ever, and you might not be able to answer this because sometimes I struggle to on the spot, but have you ever seen an example of disability itself driving innovation in the work that you're doing?
I think the work that we're doing, the Indigenous knowledge that we're bringing around inclusion, this fundamental philosophy that everyone has a place and purpose in the world. Everyone has a reason of existence. That's the message of cultural inclusion. Very ecological. We use nature to teach it. We show, look, the different plants in the world, the different animals, all working together in an ecology. It's not like one's better than the other. It has to be other. That's an Indigenous knowledge. And I can see the disability community, whether it's, people with intellectual disability or ethnic groups, certain ethnic groups are looking at this and going, cultural groups are going, well, that's our culture. It looks different, but there's a similar message around, reclaiming our culture and our place where we have a place and purpose of the world. Now, it sounds really big, but what it does, it change the assumptions of people. It changes hang on, you're broken, we must fix you. And it steps out and you're going, actually, it's a knowledge thing. You have a knowledge, I have a knowledge, it comes together. So we're stepping out of what we're conditioned to thinking, sort of that kind of puts people in a social order and going, actually, you're all a part of our community and we can grow. And I think how we think about climate change, we care about sort of the ecology of our environment. I kind of think we can start thinking about humankind in the same way. Like this is our, the inclusion and disability inclusion. It's like climate change for the environment, but it's about people. And I think our world will be stronger, our communities will be stronger, just by stepping out of that. And I thought that's the innovation. It sounds, like it's almost like ancient law is providing the contemporary innovation in this world.
And that very well may be the answer for this final question, but I want to offer it to you anyway, because we do with all of our guests, which is would love to invite you to leave a remarkable insight for people enjoying this episode to think about well after this episode. And that can be about disability, tech, innovation, or culture as inclusion.
I think the lessons that I've had from mine, I said I benefited from learning from my elders. And I said the one that I keep coming back to is like everyone has a place and purpose. And it's not just you, it's others. So you start seeing others in a different way as well. But it starts with you. And I said, I know a lot of people feel like they're made disabled and going, that's actually wrong. That's actually not the natural world. That's not the natural law. You are here for a reason. And I thought, if you can find that place, that special place, and activate your superpower where you can kind of go, I'm in for me, so I go into my quiet world. Find that quiet world for you. You're indestructible there. No one in the whole wide world can have that experience but you, and no one can have that knowledge but you. And I think that's actually quite an empowering thing. It just transcends. It just, I said, it just gives me personal strength. And I know when I talk to our community, you're going, yeah, okay, it gives us strength. We catch, as we can catch trauma, we can catch goodwill and health and well-being through inclusion.